Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. Addressing the dropout crisis one strategy at a time. Brought to you by the National Dropout Prevention Center with support from Penn Foster and Catapult Learning and in partnership with Clemson Broadcast Productions.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this final version of Solutions for this school year. I don't know where the time has gone, but it's gone, and here we are in June, and we've got our final edition of Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. And so we're really happy to have you joining us. Many of you are out of school, and so you have your leisure, and you're spending your time with us. We appreciate that. And I'm here, as you can see, with my co-host, Dr. Sandy Addis.
Thank you, Marty.
And with our presenter, Dr. Mark Wilson.
Thanks,
so
Marty.
we're just so happy to have everybody here.
Thank you, Marty. Mark, we're so pleased to have you here with us today. Viewers, today our topic is a place where they want to be. Dr. Mark Wilson, as you will see, has a real wealth of information to help us understand how to create that type of school where students want to be, want to stay, want to graduate, and want to be successful. Mark, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. It's great to be back at Clemson, and it's good to be with you, Marty and Sandy.
Yes, we do have to make an aside here. I know Sandy's going to tell everybody all about you in a minute, but you notice the orange tie? Mark is a Clemson alum and a fine one, and we're very proud of him, and so happy to have you here today.
Good to be here.
Now this series, if this is the first time you've seen Solutions, you don't know this, but Solutions has as its heart good quality professional development. And if you looked at other things on this website, Mark has provided us with a wealth of resources to complement the program that today will show you how you can have this wonderful school climate and culture in your own school. And so this expertise that we're so happy to bring to you each time with Solutions is something that we feel is such a help to the field, to bring national experts to every school in this country. So today we have a very special one. We have a program lineup today that I just want to give you a scope of what's coming. About halfway through, we'll take a break, and that's when we would love to have your questions. We have two ways you can get in touch with us. Mark, people email us at ndpc@clemson.edu, and they also can call our toll-free number, which is 888-539-8859. And as I said, we're going to have those questions in the middle of the program after a little break to have everybody a chance to type it in and jot things down. So jot things down as you think of them, but that's when we'll get to your questions. So we do encourage you to get involved, because I will say Sandy and I always never have a shortage of questions, but we would love to have your perspective as well. I think I've got everything here that oh yes, my favorite piece. Well, it's not my very favorite piece, because you're my favorite piece. You're right here in the studio. But we love having the last word, which is our students telling us what they like about school, what means something to them. And this week we have some students who attended Bennett Middle College High School up in Guilford County, North Carolina, in Greensboro. And these fine young women we'll have a nice message at the end, so stay tuned for that as well. So that's kind of the layout, the lay of the land, and so I think it's, without further ado, Sandy, maybe you can introduce our audience to Mark Wilson.
Marty, it's my pleasure. Viewers, today we're in for a real treat. Dr. Mark Wilson is an exceptional educator. We're very proud to say that Dr. Wilson was a member of the class of '85, graduate of Clemson University. Interestingly enough, Dr. Wilson was the student body president in '84-'85.
Thank you all for your votes.
All right, so if there were any issues that you had during that era, call in, tell Mark about it. Also, Dr. Wilson's career has been exemplary as a school leader. I believe, Mark, it was 2001, you founded the Freshman Academy at Palmetto High School over in Anderson School District 1. That was one of the first freshman academy implementations in South Carolina. It very quickly, viewers, became a state model and a national model. That freshman academy that Mark founded and organized and led initially was visited by dozens of teams from across the country, and that model was replicated in many places in the country. I know I was fortunate to bring some visitors from Georgia up to visit several times. Then Mark was principal of Morgan County High School, 2003 to 2012. And during Mark's tenure at Morgan County High School, he was named the NASSP National Secondary Principal of the Year in 2009. And much of the work that Mark did there has to do with the school climate and the atmosphere and creating Morgan County High School into a school and an environment where students wanted to be, stay, learn, succeed, and graduate. And so that's much of what we're going to learn from Mark today is as a principal, as a leader, as a member of a school faculty team, how do you contribute to that type of environment? So Mark, we're pleased to have you with us. We look forward to your presentation today. Share with us.
Thanks so much, Sandy and Marty. It's good to be here, and it's great to be a part of the National Dropout Prevention Center and the network we have at Clemson University. And as a graduate, we certainly are proud that that's a part of our heritage and part of what we do here at Clemson for sure. So I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities and to be able to be around people who have given me an opportunity to do things, and all the good things that Sandy mentioned. We were able to get to those places because we had support and vision from above, from school board and superintendent, and we had people around. And as we move into this talk about how do you build a school that people want to be in, leadership is a part, but it certainly is this collaboration between all the adults in the building, between the people out in the people in the community as well, and of course, most importantly, our last segment, the students.
Yes.
So this is what we're after, and we want that success. We want our kids to graduate, and through the years, the efforts of the National Dropout Prevention Center and individuals at schools, we've achieved higher graduation rates than we've ever had before. But as we continue to move forward, we continue to have students who don't have that moment. I love this time of year. I love graduation. I know some of my colleagues in administrator land, they love it more than others, and but I love it. I love at Morgan County our graduation outside at the football stadium, and all the students they gather, and they gather in the gym, and they walk through, and the faculty spreads out and claps their hands, and as they come through, they form a tunnel. The kids come through. And on both sides of the stadium, there are families, and they're excited. And we're one of the places where we feel like we've got a good balance with that, because people do have air horns and they do hoop and holler, but then they stop and they listen to the next person too. And so I'm proud of our community of that. And what I'm proud of is that wherever you go, and right now I do a lot of work in Georgia, but I do a lot of work across the country as well. And one of the things that unites us is this goal that we all have to wear the hat, to walk across the stage, have people be proud of us, and it's a moment, and we often looked at that as this milestone, and it certainly is. But as we move forward in our pursuit of lifelong learners and lifelong education, it's more of a benchmark along the way of that we've hit that mark, that we've been able to accomplish the commensurate goals for graduation, and when our kids walk off the field. It's what they have with them. The diploma gets them somewhere, but it's what they've learned, what that experience has been while they've been at school, that's really going to serve them from that point forward. So I think that all of us who work in the school business, what a great privilege it is to be a part of that life and to be able to do those things. And so while we have them for roughly 7 hours a day, we should want our schools to be places where kids want to be. So we're going to look at two questions. I suppose this doesn't look very ambitious, but we only have two questions. But I think it will turn out to be very ambitious. So if we want to build a place, if we want school to be a place where they want to be, the two questions are, what does it look like? And how do you build it? And when we look at this idea of what does it look like, we ought to be able to look at what we spend our time at school doing, and that should tell us what it is that we want school to look like. So here's a picture of what school looks like. Okay, well, that's certainly not it, but it's a big part of things, and we have to acknowledge that much of what may be going on in our schools across the country may be as a result of the mandates, the requirements that are pushed down. And let me say up front, that's not a bad thing. We need for our kids to be able to, we need to be able to acknowledge and to prove to the public and to acknowledge to our kids that they've achieved something, that they've learned while they're in school. But I'm not sure if that's all there is to it. Well, I guess I do know. If that's all there is to it, this is how kids may react, is that may be their answer if that's what your vision of school is. This, their answer may be that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you want people to be successful, it's better for them to want to be there, to want to be a part of it, to have a reason for coming. And I think part of what we've done in our attempt to quantify academic success, we may have missed the mark on giving people a reason to do that. Kids are going to quickly, one of the things that we've said for a long time is that schools should be places of rigor, relevance, and relationships. And if things aren't relevant, kids will tell you, and they'll tell you pretty quickly. So, what does a place where kids want to come? What does it look like? It sort of looks like this. Here's some pictures of different poses from one particular year at Morgan County High School, and a place where kids want to come. They're together. They're social. They are doing things. They're performing things. They're doing things that they like. And in our effort to build a school where kids like, sometimes these things are frowned upon, and I understand it. I think a lot of people who lead schools and the teachers who work with them follow their cues, because the truth of the matter is, as organic as we would like for things to be, so much of everything comes from the school board and the superintendent, to the principal, to the teachers, and then to the students. And rarely is a system able to, the students at a school able to do more than what they're permitted to do. So it's from the top. It's what do we want it to look like? What do we want it to be? And our desire to make sure that we can prove to our public, prove to our students, prove to ourselves that we have covered the material and know what we're supposed to do. Sometimes we spend all of our time doing that, and we forget about these things. These things are the things that make kids want to wake up in the morning. These things are these are the things that buy you that time to be able to get them, because I guess to a degree, you need to let people do what they want to do to be able to get them to do what you want them to do. And if those things, the more those things combine and the more that they're a part of each other, it's really important. But we have to acknowledge that these are teenagers, and at middle school, they're adolescents, and at elementary school, they're younger children. They're real people at different ages coming through with different needs. And the more we acknowledge their needs, and the more that we acknowledge how they work and what works for them, I think we're beating our heads against the wall when we fail to realize or fail to acknowledge. I think we know, but when we fail to acknowledge, we want to ignore that. We go, yeah, but we got to do this. When we fail to meet their needs, they fail to meet the scores that we're shooting for.
Now I see on these pictures here fun things.
Fun is good.
Fun. And we'll find out later why this guy is fun. I'm just going to hang in there because we're going to have some fun in the middle. But fun things are one thing. And how do we marry that whole idea of fun to what our system, our society needs our young people to learn, which is then evidenced by examinations or whatever, however we measure it. It's marrying that, and to me, learning is fun. So how do we make that? Because this seems the extreme. Oh yeah, well, everybody will have fun. But what about when I go inside that building?
Well, and those are pictures designed to show you that. But there's certainly more to it than that. I think one of the things that is most fun is being able to have challenging work and to be successful in it. You have satisfaction that takes you beyond fun. And you certainly can do it in a way that is enjoyable versus tedious and boring. A lot of this really comes down to, and I believe one thing that happens, Marty, is that so often there are answers, there are solutions that are elegant in their simplicity.
Yes.
But a lot of people, they have a hard time believing that they really could be the right solution because they're so simple. And quite honestly, much of this is pretty simple. It's our attitude. It's how we address this. And for a school, the teachers are going to take on the attitude of the principal. The students are going to take on the attitude of the teachers. And all of that circles back around too. And you can build this unit, this organization, this group of people based on the strength of your relationships, the strength of your attitude. And none of this is intended to say we want less from our kids. We want more.
Right.
Because fun comes through the engagement. The most unhappy people I run into these days, I fly a lot and I'm at the airport, and there are very unhappy people at the airport. Because now on one hand you would look at them and you would say, well, they're not doing anything. They're not having to work. They're not sweating. They're sitting in a chair. They're listening to music. Why aren't they happy? Because they're not really accomplishing anything. That time that they're sitting there, they feel is wasted time. So for some people, it's understanding the difference between intentional efforts to help people grow versus wasted time. And a lot of that's in understanding adolescence better.
Yeah.
Mark, it's almost like you're saying that we can actually achieve the academic gains by focusing on the interpersonal relationships and the fun experiences.
Well, you really, I know our background is similar. Sandy and you and I both all our lives heard that you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Right.
I never knew why we wanted to catch flies, but I do know that what you say is correct, that we are able to, we're able to get people to achieve more and to do more if they feel good about this place. And a lot of people don't like emotions now. A lot of people, they're like, oh, that's squishy and it's touchy-feely and I don't like that. But you've got to recognize, if you're a teacher or a school principal, humans are pretty big on emotions, and they drive a lot of what happens. And as we're building schools, the recent passing of Maya Angelou, one of the many things that she taught us was something that I often mention to school people is her quote, "People will forget who you are, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And how you make them feel is a big thing in the world of adolescence. Sometimes as adults, we may be able to process those things differently, but when you respect people, when you're able to, when you respect the kids at a school, it goes a long way towards getting them to do what you believe is good for them. Because kids have a funny way. They're matter of fact about things we think are important, and they're find important some of the things we think are matter of fact. And so being able to reach that point where we can come together. And we have research. It's not just, hey, I'm a fun guy and let's do fun things. And I believe that's where we lose people, Sandy, is that there are a lot of people, they push something away because they don't understand it. But if data is there to support this notion, and it comes from the National Dropout Prevention Center's many resources. You're probably on that site now, but there's so many things, and this comes from the resource list. Among the many reasons that people drop out of schools, there's this whole genre of not liking school. These are among the top reasons that students have given for dropping out. They didn't like school, they didn't feel belong there, couldn't get along with either teachers or others, or they moved in and they didn't like the new school. And in acknowledging that and acknowledging the research behind that, we know that it matters whether people like school or not. So if we want to build a place like that, what specifically should it look like, and what does it look like? And I've got three pieces here for you. One is for students, the other is for teachers, and the third is for everybody together. So for students, what it looks like is this. A school where students want to attend is a place where they feel valued. So let's start with that for a minute. If you are a student and you like skateboarding, or you like barrel racing, which we had at our school, or you are somebody who likes poetry, there ought to be a place for you at school, and you ought to be acknowledged for that, and it ought to be just as important as anything else. And many, there are a lot of strategies that you can do to show students that you value them. We had a wall of fame as soon as you walked in the school, and you could see people from different arenas of our school, from different interests. And the other thing, though, is allowing your school to operate in such a way that those individuals are spotlighted. They have a chance to shine. And we, Morgan County, Georgia, population 17,000 people. We have twice as many cows as we have people, and so we're rural, and our kids in the FFA, and not just in the FFA, but some of our kids are really good barrel racers. Well, you don't have that in high school, but what our kids did was they had an idea and they set up a rodeo in our front yard of our school. And it's a pretty cool day of school for you to be able to say, I rode my horse to school, and everyone else came out and watched.
Yeah.
And in doing that, though, schools can find great value in this because you don't just set it up for them and let them do it. Our kids learned about waivers. They learned about how to organize events. They learned logistics, because it's not just letting kids do things, it's letting kids be in charge of things. And that values them and shows them that.
This empowerment thing it's huge, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And again, I mean, Daniel Pink teaches us that what motivates people now are really three pieces. It's purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And he suggests that we've kind of moved past, and I think to a degree we have, there's still some of it, but we've kind of moved past carrots and sticks. And what really gets people to do something, because that's, at the end of the day, I mean, what else do we do at school? We try to get people to do things. And so if you are doing that and you can acknowledge that what motivates them is they need purpose, and they need to be able to do it. That autonomy is there because you got to do it, and you got to do it wrong sometimes. And that whole idea of mastery is you want to get good at something. And we had kids, they might not have been good at these other things, but they were really good at this. And giving them that chance to be out there and do it, it was really important. But the bigger piece of value, though, and it's not just students, it's my advice to principals, when someone comes in and they're all fired up about something, remember, they want to be valued, and they want to be respected, and they want to be listened to. And if you can start there, things can often have a positive outcome. But so it's not just kids, but it's everybody. But the whole idea of value is the adults in a building have to really, really value kids for who they are, and not necessarily try to shape them into this or that, but to let them be who they are, and let them become what they can be, while we continue to have this rigor of academic expectations. And there are a lot of people that can't see this. That what you asked earlier, they don't see how this comes together, and those are the places where the kids aren't happy there, because they don't get that part. But when kids don't feel valued, if they don't feel respected, they're going to find other ways to show their displeasure with that. And some of it is more overt than others, but a lot of times they just shut down. And when we look at kids who drop out of school, and what the center is about, and what we're seeking for solutions, I would suggest that a lot of those kids who said they don't like school, there's another question asked there. Why do you not like school? Because much of that, in my experience, has been they didn't like the way they were treated. So much of this is so fundamental and basic that, again, it evades people because it's that simple. But the way we treat people is really critical. And if you can get a group of teachers, group of faculty, maybe not just teachers, custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, secretaries, principal, if you get everybody bought into this idea that no matter what, we're going to treat people the right way, then things can evolve here. Because now when you ask me to do something, I'm a student and you ask me to do something, I have a whole different attitude about whether I'm going to do this or not. So doing these things and setting up a school and creating a school where this is part of your culture, this is a really big solution to people dropping out, and not just dropping out or staying in school. This is a really big solution to getting kids to expand who they are and to be prepared upon their leaving of the school. So we seek for our students to be valued, respected, and this next part is listened to. Really big with kids. They want to talk sometimes
And heard. That is huge.
heard.
Yes.
And they will
Yeah.
express their displeasure
Yeah.
over that if they don't get that. And they don't always expect you. They know how school works, and they don't expect you to do things that are beyond your control.
Yeah.
They just want you to listen, and they want you to understand how they feel. And I suppose that's one of the things. Again, some skeptics of this sort of line of thought, they want to discount those emotions, but. One of the things I like to do in class, teaching class, and I do it with the adults I work with now, my first part of class is what's on your mind. It sounds simple.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes on for hours because adults have things on their mind too. And I think it's a critical piece of working with anybody is, what is it you're thinking? And again, it's not just loosey-goosey out there. I know that, again, if you don't understand it and you don't believe this, that's what you think. But for people who've done it and people who get it, this is the way to be able to get students to buy into what you want, to buy into what you're selling.
Well, you talk about rigor, relevance, and relationships. There are a lot of people who say the 3 R's are, I think it's coming, relationships, relationships, and relationships. And I see that so much in this slide.
It's powerful, and it goes into the next bullet there. Students want to be valued, respected, and listened to, but they also want to be cared for. And that's what the school looks like, where students feel welcome at that school, that they're cared for. And what that means is not just immediate needs of safety and shelter, but also that you give them a protective academic environment where if somebody has a different idea, they're going to be able to be cared for in that. They're going to be able to share that idea. It takes you into a deeper academic pursuit for you to be able to reach those things. The school where kids like to be, the students are going to be challenged. And again, back to the airport, those people aren't being challenged, they're hating life. A kid at a school, and some people think this, they're like, well, we don't have a big educational expectations in our community, and our kids just can't do this kind of work. People will live up or live down to your expectations. And I've often heard many of my colleagues, and I agree, that expectations are among the most powerful things in the building, and not just high expectations, but low expectations. If you drive it to that point, people will meet up with your expectations. And so I know we had this is back to your question about the fun pictures. Yeah, those are fun pictures. But the other part of this being a place where kids want to be is that you challenge them, and that when they don't want to do it, that you don't give up.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, you didn't do it, you get an F. It's really hard to say you didn't do it, but we're going to make you do it, and we're not going to give up until you do it. And when you don't do it, we're going to ask you to do it again, because that's exhausting. But that's what makes the difference. I've often said that when our persistence becomes greater than their apathy, then we have changed people. And so, and that's what happens. And it's not just what we're doing to them, but what we allow them to do. That we've talked about it already as empowered, as students that are able to do things at school. And we try to build Morgan County High School based on students being empowered. We had meetings with students that we need to give them information to, but when we were having general gatherings of our students across the school, whether it be homecoming or assemblies, it was our students who were out there. The adults were over in the wings, and we helped.
Yeah.
They need help. They need support, but they need to be the ones out there doing this. They need to be the ones planning it, and to great degrees, we let the kids run the school, which fears many adults beyond their words, because that almost becomes a bad word. I would say you're not thinking right if you think that way, because when you let students run the school, then they are learning while they're doing it, and they are becoming all those things that, when I look at what a school ought to look like, if you want to go into the business model, and you ask people in business, all right, what do you want from our kids when they come to you? And they often tell us that without us asking. And the list every year from National Association of Colleges and Employers is pretty much the same, and it includes written communication, oral communication, teamwork, being able to work with other people, and so many of those social skills. So you go back into a school, and you have leadership and you have teachers, and they've all gotten into this idea where every second of every day we got to be hammering kids, and we got to be doing all of this. The only thing we can do is this academic work, and I'm all for academics. Please don't misunderstand me. But then when they get out there, they can't get along with each other, and they don't know how to lead stuff, and they don't know how to solve their problems, because we've been doing school this way that really didn't help them. But if you put them in circumstances and you give them real life unpredictable situations and real life predictable situations, then we're really getting somewhere with them.
Okay, now are we next going to see what the
let me get
teachers?
into what teachers do for
Yeah.
sure here. So at a school where the students want to be, this is what adults are like. Number one is deeply committed to student success. And that sounds like, the flag and apple pie and but it isn't. Because if you really get into that, a deep commitment to student success means that we're going to build a school for the students. And that deep commitment means that every day, even if it's hard, even if it's really difficult, we're still going to continue to do what we do for student success. So often, and again, I'm a champion for teachers. I believe in teachers. I believe that we have a handful of people who don't do great, but most everybody's working as hard as they can, and they're good people, and they want to do well. When you can get all those people together and they really commit to student success, it means that they'll be patient. Patience is hard. Patience is tough on people, but patience is the difference, because that allows student growth. It's when we become impatient and we're committed to scores versus student success that we keep pushing and pushing, and we don't give them time to breathe, time to be able to do things that around the school that really make a difference. A big thing for adults at the school, they have to be unified in a common mission, and what I mean by that is it only takes a couple to really mess this up, because you've got a group of people, they're committed, they're bought in, they're engaged in the activities that kids are interested in. You can see the smiles on their faces. But everybody's really big on nonverbals. It only takes a couple of people in the building to roll their eyes, to shrug their shoulders, to shake their head, and to not be a part of the school. And to me, those people are a problem. I know that they think they're right, and I know they're like, we're not doing it right. Well, you've got to figure out what the common ground is for the people who are working at a school, because one of the things that confuses kids is if you have teachers who are giving you different messages.
This is this whole thing about student success, or you said are doing well in scores or grades or whatever.
Right.
And is there really a way to get that unity for the common mission of student success, as I'm taking you to define it as a broader definition than everybody's got these test scores? We got high SATs, we've got whatever. But the broader definition. Do you see, and did you see this in your school and others in the other schools you worked with, that the faculty is an agreement about student success? Because I've been to schools where there's this many, it's like you say, and then there's this one. In my class, we're just going to do this, we're going to get through the curriculum, they're going to learn this, and they're going to master it so they can do well on the AP test, blah, blah, blah. And this other stuff, that's not for me to worry about. Is there a way to get everybody on board with student success broadly defined?
Yes.
That's the how. That's going to be in the second part, right?
and it takes tremendous effort.
And it's that patience.
It really does, because it's, as you mentioned, particularly in high schools. I mean, I've heard it said before, it's easier to move a graveyard than a high school, and because the people who work in schools, a lot of them, I mean, when they were playing school back when they were kids, they never imagined that they were going to have a co-teacher, that they were going to collaborate with other teachers. And this wasn't their vision of what they wanted to do. And even with a lot of the youngies, I mean, they were taught by people, and that was their vision. And so redefining teaching in 2014 and beyond, it is certainly, and it has been for a long time, and people were doing it well. It's team effort, and it's a team effort. You have to meet the test score requirements, and those things, they will fire you if you don't. So you have to do those things, and please don't let me lead you astray in those thoughts. But it is more than that. It is our kids being prepared for other things. It's giving them experiences. It's using school as this opportunity for them to learn, and what will inhibit that from really happening at a school is if you have people pulling in the other direction. And so getting to that point is critical, and it's a challenge for people who think that the topic they're teaching them is more important than any other topic that's ever existed. And we want people to be passionate. I mean, we don't want dispassionate people, but that's where we have to be for these schools to be this way. We also need adults. Our job is precious. It is an important thing when we're working with kids. We're working with parents. They have nothing more important to them than what they send to us at school every day. And they're not perfect. Parents aren't perfect. Kids aren't perfect. And we're not perfect. And when they come, we have to recognize that as a privilege that we have. And in doing so, it means that we have to continue to want to get better. And we need to develop professional learning communities within our schools. We need to be in our own pursuit of knowledge and learning. We need to work on our attitude to be able to make sure that we purge things that keep us from being able to help people do what they need to do. On Twitter, we need to develop worldwide networks of professional learning. We need to reach out to all of the resources. We have so many resources now. And so part of being a professional is being prepared and being able to be better at what you do. And the final thing here about if you want to build a school where students want to be there, the adults that are there, they're driven by purpose. They have a desire to do well and they help others do well. And again, people want their kids to do well. If you're teaching AP chemistry, you want your kids to do well on the test. But there's this higher purpose, even yet, that lets you know that a kid comes into your class and no matter how hard they work, their background before coming in there is not as strong as you would have liked. And they're not going to make a 3 on that test. But you know that they're going to endure and they're going to struggle and they're going to have a triumph of sorts when they get through that class. They're going to have learned. And the best teachers who fill the best schools are people who they know that students growing is important. And the trick of all this, I know differentiation is something we have recently in the last few years talked about, but it's always been there. It's why this is hard, because when people came to us through the years and wanted to look for answers, look for solutions, it's not that simple. They want me to hand them a brick, but what I'm going to hand you is Jell-O, and it may be Jell-O that's been out 2 or 3 days because it's squishy. It's like, how do we make this work? Well, it's hard because you're dealing with humans. You're dealing with real humans who are changing, who change from week to week because this is the nature of kids. So you have to have, if you're going to teach, you have to have that knowledge that you're going to plant seeds for trees whose shade you'll never sit under. You may not ever even get to see them come out the ground because the life of the teacher, building a school where kids want to come, is one that you are patient and you know that your efforts, they're a part of a bigger picture in that kid's life. So that's what it looks like. And when we come together, it's these pieces. I refer to citizens of the school, and the first senior class president that I had at Morgan County High School was Sam Scott, and graduate of Harvard now, and just a great guy, and he got me using that term, citizens of school. And I've used it since and shared it with lots of people because it's really who we are. It's and it's that mindset of that we come together and we're all a part of this particular place. But when the schools that kids want to be at, that they don't want to move away from, they have this strong sense of these things, of unity, identity, and vision and purpose. And when you have these things, it's very powerful for kids. The unity is important because if it seems detached, whether it's be the students from the teachers or the teachers from each other, it just doesn't have that air of being solid for kids. You know, we want kids, and you look at the Dropout Prevention Center logo, there's somebody reaching up towards the star. Well, you can't jump to the stars if you're standing in sand because you've got to have a firm foundation. And part of that firm foundation is everybody coming together for that unity and to be able to have something that brings people there. The other is identity. And I mean, if you study adolescent growth at all, identities are really big. And if you can be a part of something, whether it be the school as a whole or whether it be just a part of it, you know, at our school, everybody had a T-shirt, and I'm happy everybody has a T-shirt because they have a T-shirt for the Ultimate Frisbee Club, and they have one for the Art Dogs, and they have one for football, and they have one for the drama dogs. I mean, everybody has their own, because identity matters. And if you can attach to something and it makes you feel strong about that, it's really important. But certainly the vision and the purpose are really there. And that is what when you're in leadership, this is what you protect. You help the process of helping everybody develop the vision together, and then you become the protector of that vision. And when people want to get off track, you know, if most every school, somewhere in their mission statement, they have, we believe all students can learn. The principal has to be the one that protects that. And when somebody's not behaving like that, it's the principal that has to call them under task for that. And that's a big one. I mean, it's one that's there for everybody, but you have a lot of work to do on that. And that's the thing with all of this is when you're building a school, back to patience. A lot of people, they want something and they want you to give it to them and they want to be able to plant it in the ground and then it works from then on. And it just doesn't work like that, because when we're looking for solutions to the dropout crisis, it is exhausting. It takes every little fiber that you got. That's what it does. When I left Morgan County a couple of years ago as the principal, they had to get together in the faculty, and Mary Ann Dartnell, our science department chair, she said, everybody said nice things and I appreciate it, but the nicest thing that she said was this. She said, over the last 9 years, Doc, that's what they call me, has sucked every bit of life out of all of us. But then she ended, she said, and we loved it. Because see, that's the thing. If you can bring people together and they have a purpose and there's a reason that people are working together, people don't mind giving of themselves for that. The adults and then the kids. And so those four pieces, they really are there. And I have research to back this from none other than Marty Duckenfield. And
I'm a source.
you are a
And
source.
Beth, yes,
and Beth
that
Rim
too.
is
Yes,
executive
yes.
director. Developing and sustaining high quality school climates is deeply tied to strategies emerging from dropout prevention research and work. We know this works. So why doesn't everybody do it?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, Mark, I'm sure we've got viewers that are building administrators right now that are thinking, I'd like for my school to be like that. I'm the building administrator. How do I get to that? What can I do?
Let me show you a couple of places where I was, and let me tell you how that happened.
Okay.
Sandy and I both worked at different times at Anderson District 1, and we were both fortunate to work with Dr. Reggie Christopher, and he was a mentor for both of us, and an excellent school leader. And we started, as Sandy mentioned earlier, the Freshman Academy at Palmetto High School, and the results there were pretty astounding. We went from 72% of our kids passing 6 or more classes to 94% in 1 year. And Principal Mason Gary was there, and he was a big part of leading this effort, but so were all the teachers who were involved in this, and the kids. It takes everybody to be able to do this. But people came, and they wanted to know what it is that you did, and how did this work. People came, as you said, by the dozens, and they wanted to see what happened. And the thing that I'm very proud of Palmetto is 12 years later, they still are in the 90% of the freshmen passing 6 or more classes. So it's sustainable work, and it's something that works. So we know it's there. It's based on climate. It's based on culture. It's based on this attitude of it's going to work, and we're going to make it work. Morgan County High School. There's our family photo. There.
Oh, I love it.
It's beautiful. My friend Kathy Lewan, she flew over. She's a pilot. She flew over and took that picture. And,
Wasn't a drone then.
It was not. Well, it could be now, but it was
A few years ago.
Jeff Bezos to do that for the next one. But the M, that's the seniors. They're all together, and the C is the juniors. H is sophomores. That word means wise fool. So the H isn't quite there, but and then the S, bless the freshman's heart. You know, there they are, and then exclamation points to teachers. And
I
so
love it.
it's a great family photo. But there at Morgan, our graduation rate over a decade went up significantly, and this is with the cohort method, and so it's the harder, obvious way of measuring that, and so people came by the busload because they saw this and they saw other things about what we were doing, and they had one big question both at Palmetto and at Morgan County, and it was,
How?
how'd you do that?
Oh, this is one reason why we're here. We
Exactly.
want to know how to do this, and this is the special house slide is kind of like a signal to us that we're kind of at the point where we're going to take a little break, and I want to invite our listeners, our viewers, I'm so used to saying listeners, Mark, we did radio for this for 6 years, our viewers to call in at 888-539-8859 over the next few minutes, or send me an email. I got my email ready here, to ndpc@clemson.edu. ndpc@clemson.edu, or 888-539-8859. And if you call, you get to talk to Mark. So that's kind of a bonus, not just us. And so we will take those, and I'll be watching for those emails right now. But you know, I was alluded earlier to saying that I knew that this was going to be fun today, because Mark and I had a conversation, Sandy, while you were working away, you know, at your meeting. We had a conversation about the program and how we'd like to have the 30-second quiz, and we'd come up with some interesting ideas for that and send them to us. And we chatted about lots of things that we have in common, and one of those turned out to be the Beatles. How did we get on that conversation?
You know, the Beatles always come up, and so the Beatles, if you're looking for a soundtrack for developing school climate, something to kind of, and we do, you know, in schools we play songs and they stand for things. So the Beatles have lots of song titles that, as it turns out, that really speak of school climate and culture.
Okay, this is fun. So we're ready to let it rip for the 30-second quiz, and call in while we're gone. And so our 30-second quiz today asks the question, which of the following school culture-friendly Beatles songs was not a #1 hit on the U.S. charts? Was it Come Together, or All You Need Is Love, or With a Little Help from My Friends, or was it We Can Work It Out? Well, while you're pondering this, we have a very important introduction to make to our audience today. We are so pleased to introduce Ray McNulty, who's just begun his term as chair of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network.
Hi, I'm Ray McNulty, the chair of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network. I'm also the Chief Learning Officer at Penn Foster, and on July 1, I'll become the Dean at the School of Education for Southern New Hampshire University. I'd like you to join me in helping to solve the problem of dropouts in this country. There are more ways to learn today than there are ways to teach. And together, if we work on this issue, we can solve one of the biggest challenges we face today in education.
And the question was, which school culture-friendly Beatles song was not a #1 hit on the U.S. charts? And the answer is... Did you know that was the answer, Sandy?
No, Marty, I did not.
Can you sing that song, Sandy? I don't know if we get in trouble if we sang it. Because
we would be in deep trouble, Marty.
With a little help from my friends. But every one of those does represent that. I love it when you find movie titles, song titles, but particularly love it because it's the Beatles. And since all those others were #1, tell us, Mark, where was With a Little Help from My Friends, sung by our friend Ringo Starr?
It made it all the way up to number 71.
71.
On the US
I don't know why
chart.
he didn't, nail that one. So, while we're waiting for these callers and emailers, and I hope you do consider doing that with us today, Sandy and Mark had something they wanted to share with everybody.
We do, Marty. Thank you. Listeners, and Mark, as you know, throughout the year, the National Dropout Prevention Center hosts a number of events for practitioners, professional learning events, workshops, things of that nature. We have several coming up, one in the very near future. This is a new undertaking for the National Dropout Prevention Center. It's the Diploma Plan Institute. It's June the 18th through the 20th at Kingston Plantation and Resort, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is actually a very unusual type of event. It's not a traditional conference. It's an event where schools can send teams to work directly with content area experts, Mark being one of those, to learn about the components that should be included in a school dropout prevention plan, and then to develop drafts of that plan. So over the course of 2.5 days, our various experts will include people such as Mark, who will speak about school climate and help teams from schools determine how to best address school climate in their dropout prevention plan. They will also learn from experts like Bob Eichhorn, President of the National Alternative Education Association, on best ways to utilize alternative programs for dropout prevention at a given school, and maybe consider different ways to utilize existing alternative programs. Dr. Beth Reynolds, our Executive Director, will speak about instructional leadership as a dropout prevention strategy and how to incorporate modifications in your instructional leadership. We'll have Tom Wilson, who's Superintendent of Anderson School District 5, who has done a great job of involving his community and his school board in the dropout prevention issue. How do you motivate and include and involve a community to support the dropout prevention efforts of a school? So over the course of several days, we will have these teams walk away with content and work that they will have accomplished into the direct counsel and leadership of these experts to go back to their school districts, report back to their school boards to implement a plan. And so this is something that we've had a lot of requests for. Right now we have space available, not much left, but we do have space for several teams.
Okay.
We have teams coming from numerous states around the country, so we look forward to that. I would encourage our listeners and viewers to check our website, Diploma Plan Institute, June 18th through 20th.
Yep.
It's going to be a great event. Another event that we have coming up in the fall, every year, the National Dropout Prevention Center hosts the National Dropout Prevention Conference. This will be the 26th annual, one of the longest running dropout prevention events in our nation, to our knowledge, the longest running.
It is, I think so.
And typically we draw in the neighborhood of 1,000 practitioners. I see this as a shopping trip for dropout prevention strategies. We will have over 100 breakout sessions. We'll have keynote speakers, and one of our presenters, I believe in a pre-conference setting, will be Dr. Wilson, our guest today, who will be addressing content for principals and leaders. So we'll have a special strand that Dr. Wilson will be a part of, and that is in November 2 through 5, Louisville, Kentucky. Great venue. Registration is open. It's on our website. 26th Annual Dropout Prevention Conference. So we'd love to have our viewers participate in those two events.
Yeah, and I think some schools right now are planning for the fall before they let out for the summer, so that was really good that you mentioned the National Conference. And the other institute's just 2 weeks away, but still openings.
Yes.
Fantastic opportunities to learn with some really good people. Now we want to move along. We did not get questions, and I think I know why. Because Mark is about to provide the answers, and everybody's saying, well, he's going to tell us how.
How do you do
so
it?
we may not have time for they're outside questions today because we want to get right to it, and time is zipping. So let's get moving
Let's
into
get
the
zipping.
how.
Here
Let's
we
get
go.
zipping.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So here's one of the things that often happen when people would come to visit, and they would want to know what to do. One of the things we had at Morgan County was a unique schedule. It was a 7-period hybrid schedule, and a lot of people came in. They came in buses, and they said, give us the schedule. And we would go, no, wait a minute. The schedule helps, but it's not about the schedule. And they would go, yeah, but give us the schedule. And we would go, it's about other things. It's about all these other pieces. The schedule provides a framework for us to do those things. And our things may be different than your things because you've got to define what they are, what your needs are. And they would go, yeah, but give us the schedule. And those people, we knew that they were going to go away, and they were going to try the schedule, and then they're going to be mad later because it didn't work.
Yeah.
Because it isn't about those people. How you build it is really in 3 parts. You have to have a vision of what it is that you seek to achieve. You have to have a unity and commitment amongst the adults. And you have to empower people to do things. And I know this sounds, okay, this is overly simple as well.
Yeah.
But there's so many different threads inside of each of those pieces. And the empowerment piece, I have to give so much credit to Pat Stokes, who was the superintendent at Morgan County High School, or Morgan County Schools, who hired me, and the school board who supported her, because empowerment isn't just the principal. Empowerment is the school board and the superintendent. It has to come from those pieces, because if they are not ready to embrace the other pieces of this, what happens is what is happening at so many places is people are afraid. There's so many good ideas that are just dying out there every day. There are teachers that have good ideas, that are students that have ideas, but they're afraid to say them because they're not in a culture where ideas are accepted. See, that has to be part of your vision. You have to be able to make that a part of what you do. You have to be unified. And so here's the quick how-to. If you're a principal out there and you're thinking, all right, where do I get started? You start by bringing people together. you start by aligning a vision. And I'll give you 4 quick questions
Okay.
to do your vision. Who am I as an individual, because it really matters in the scheme of things. Who are we as a group? And if you can do that with real introspection and truth, you can get somewhere. 3rd question, who do we want to be? And then the 4th one is how do we become who we wish to be? It's just 4 questions. It's simple. But to wring it all out and get you to that point, it gives you what you believe, your basic Stephen Covey, it gives you the results triangle. That you know what the results that you want to have. Where we mess up in schools is we do that part, and we figure out results, and we figure out actions. We even do that. But that triangle has 2 more pieces. It has accountability, and it has support. Without all parts of that, things don't happen. And then you know what we do is we just come up with another action, because we don't really get into fixing those other pieces. So what I would say, how do you build a school where people want to go? Principals, get people together, ask those questions. Part 2, once you have a vision that is everyone's, you've got to continue to build that vision through unity. You've got to get people on board, and this takes time. And I know principals all over the country, they're being asked to do more in terms of evaluation, in terms of classroom observation and professional learning. And I know, a lot of people are going, I don't have time to do what I'm doing now. But I promise you, it's like the old muffler thing, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. Well, if you don't do these things now and build this foundation, all of that other stuff, wouldn't you feel awful as a school person if you're working as hard as you can, you really aren't getting the results? You've got to build this. And that other part of empowerment is the big thing. And that is a hard thing for teachers to let go.
Yes.
It's a hard thing for administrators to let go. But if you're going to build a school where people want to be there, you have to do these pieces. So there's not a moment that you have this finished. It's never going to be like that. You begin and then you continue.
It's that cycle.
It's a continued cycle. And a lot of people, when things are really hard like that, they go, well, I don't want to do it because it's too hard. And I get that. But because this change is really big, it prevents people from wanting to start. But I'll say, it's going to take a long time for you to do this, and you'll never be done. But there's no time to start like now. You just start, and all you have to do, you think of a pond that's completely still, and you want to affect all pieces of the pond. Well, you can. If a well-placed rock can make ripples go across the whole pond. And so, where do you make this happen? If those ripples are strong next to where the rock goes in, they have a chance of making it all the way across the pond. And so I encourage people, build that group of trust around you, that buy in first and really get them and empower them and continue to do it, and it'll cascade, and it will take time. The results that I showed you were not the results from year 1. Those are the results after time.
After time.
But I know we're running nigh on time, so I'll go quickly on some things. But all of this is on the website, Marty, and so people have more access. This is one slide. If you want one slide to show, this is it. The way you change schools and the way you build a school where students want to come is you change the way the adults in the building think and act. It's that simple. And I don't know a shortcut around that one because the kids get their leads from the adults, and the adults have to be strongly committed to this purpose where, and it is about academics, but it's also about that's not the end result of this. How are these kids growing? Are they becoming what they need to be? So here's the fun part, though. When the adults in the building change the way they think and act, it changes the way students in the school perform. And then you know what happens? It changes the way their parents and the community as whole look at school and look at learning in general.
Here's the ripples.
So,
the ripples.
So, Mark, you're suggesting that you can actually improve the engagement and the behavior towards school of the community from inside the school through the students rather than asking it to be done externally.
We could bring every marketing team in the world to a community, and we could have the slickest, awesomest, as good as what Marty Duckenfield puts out, good-looking stuff out there. But what people will listen to is what children come home and talk about.
Okay.
Because that is our biggest PR in school anywhere. You know, if kids come home and they go, we watched Shrek again, but it was in another language. You know, now that's not engagement. But if kids come home and go, you won't believe what we did at school today. Now we've got something. And what happens is the parents, it comes back to you. It bounces back because if parents are at home saying, you know, I don't know about that school, I don't know about your teachers, that's just, it's going to come back to the teacher. If the parents are there going, y'all are doing good things, I support you, then it bounces back from the student and it makes everything easier. And because this is so simple, people don't believe that it works, but it works, and it has to start with that first person. And I run across people that are frustrated. Maybe all of those pieces aren't in place. Maybe the faculty members are ahead of where the principal is. And the thing about it is, it's really about this whole issue of feeling confident versus being insecure. And so much of what we do is that we force people to feel insecure because we don't let them fail, because we aren't designed for what school really ought to be, and that's experimentation, scientific experiments. It's laboratories sitting there waiting to happen. One of the best things we have, the most undervalued, underused part of school are the students, because when we get them involved and we get them doing things, they do amazing things. I know I gotta get us to the end here, so let me just share a couple of pieces with this on vision. These are the 3 pieces we did at Morgan County. We were interested in what they know, because we really are. We want to know what they know, but that's not the end of it. We're also interested in what they can do, because that's what the employers want to know. You can be really good at tests, but if you are not able to work in a job, then the community at large is going to think we've not done a good job at school. And this last part is the thing that I think is worth noting and worth focusing on, is what kind of people they grow to be. This isn't my first time on television. I was on Morgan County High School's #1 show. It was the only show we had. It was every day we had the announcements, and the announcements are powerful. And the announcements I recommend to everybody. You know, it gives your kids experience, but it also helps build the culture of the school every day. And at the end of the announcements every day, I finished with my tagline, which was, "Have a great day, be nice to each other, and do well in school." And then throughout the day, we try to acknowledge all of those pieces. It became pervasive in what we do, because being nice to each other, it's a good thing. In almost every circumstance, it will serve you well. And this is a big part of what we saw as student success. So when we did that, it went into, I'm going to skip over a couple of pieces, it went into what we did with our school. We had Friday Alive, where kids were able to play. They had bands. They were on the stage of our auditorium steps. They were able to do these things. Our kids, back into what kind of people they're going to be, they did Shop with the Bulldog, where they took 2nd graders shopping for Christmas, and they bought presents for the kids' family. They raised the money, and they did that. Our kids started our own, we didn't have Special Olympics, so they started the One Morgan Olympics, and they honored those kids. And our kids started doing really big things because they were in a place that it allowed this to happen.
You know, this is kind of funny. I have a feeling we might have someone who's a testimonial calling in, but we got a caller from Madison, Georgia.
Okay.
So, named Harris. Do you happen to know someone named Harris? Why don't we just put Harris on the air, just because we like to have someone join us. We are moving toward the end.
All right.
But Harris, welcome to Solutions, and would you like to make a comment or ask a question? Would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
More a question, or not? No, a statement and a question. Ask Mark about if he has time to talk about all this, not all, but a number of the special groups that he worked with and made feel special. And
we need you to turn your computer down, Harris.
Our school system supported. I'll turn away from it. The special interest groups that Mark was able to create programs for with the support of the school system, and each of the other groups helped support one another. And so you had help that went out to kids that many times simply don't get any help.
Well, I think Harris is talking about those special groups. Thank you, Harris. We're gonna have Mark respond to that and move forward just because of our time. I love that you called. Thank you.
Thanks, Harris. And you can see, I put a slide up there, and it's One Morgan. And this was more than just a phrase or motto. It became a way of life. And if we had another hour, I could tell you more about.
We need about 10.
Sorry, I apologize. But One Morgan means two things. It means that everybody coming together as one, we become better. but it also means that every individual is important. And one of the things that Harris is talking about is our particular attention to individuals. And we had a program, certainly being a Clemson grad, I'm very familiar with Call Me Mister, and part of the pieces of Call Me Mister were part of what we did. We had a partnership with our Boys Club and Girls Club and the school and the community. And we had a program which not only promoted graduation, but post-secondary education beyond, and it was successful beyond belief, and one of many pieces that really, see, that's the thing about building a school where people want to come, is this one piece. It may not be important to everybody else, but when you make the entire tapestry, it's not the same without it, and that's where schools become what they are. Just real quickly, and thanks, Harris, for calling, and that's a whole session. But One Morgan is that whole idea of coming together, and students want to be at a school where they're a part of something, whether it's the band, whether it's our kids who are painted up on the front, whether it's people playing ball. It's all these different pieces, and kids begin to do great things. Here's one kid I want to mention to you real quickly, is Gary Walker. That's me in front, and that's Gary. And Gary's about to walk out and address all of the students. Gary came to me in the 10th grade and said, I want to be president. And I said, well, elections are coming soon. He said, I want to be president of the United States. And so we didn't laugh. What we did was we said, all right, what do you do if somebody's going to be president of the United States? What can you do at high school to help somebody do those things? So Gary basically became in charge of, he was our ambassador when visitors came, and they came. He's the one that met them out at the driveway. He's the one who spoke in front of our groups. He's became a representative. We gave him an opportunity to be a spokesperson for our school. Some of our teachers did specific things with him on speech and just helping him with different things. And fast forward a little bit later, there is Gary becoming a graduate of Kennesaw State University. And so he's continued to do his leadership. And when he runs for president, please vote for him.
Well, we're going to watch for that. When is he going to be eligible? When is he going to be 35?
I'll have to do the math on that. But yeah, when we get him up there, because I get to stay in the Lincoln bedroom if he gets to be president. And so, and he would be really good as president.
Hey, we'll
too.
do a special solutions program from there,
that
too.
Would be that. I can get you in. So, real quickly, our kids, they wrote a handwritten letter to all 25,000 public high schools all in one day and mailed them out, because this was the kind of culture that we had. It was in support of Darius Goes West. Check it out, by the way, dariusgoeswest.org. Amazing story that we don't have time to tell right now. Our kids got a law passed. Our kids just didn't do mock legislature. They did, but they took it from there and they actually lobbied and got the law passed in Georgia where drivers are not able to text while they drive. Our kids
excellent.
did that.
Yeah.
So amazing things happen at school every day if you'll just let them. And see, that's the thing, is I think that we are running so many of our schools with just restraints on because we're afraid. Because we're afraid if we let these things happen that we won't make our marks. What I'm saying is that because you do these things, you will. Because the kids will want to be there, they'll want to stay, they'll want to do quality work. I skipped over some slides that showed our academic numbers were excellent. We're a national model school with when Ray McNulty was working with model schools. We did those things, and we didn't do them in spite of doing these things. I believe we did them because of them.
Because of it.
Mark, when you went to Morgan County High School, did you feel in any way that you were taking a risk by embarking on this simple but obvious route to student success?
Yes, and that's one of the things that curses us in education, because like in business, if you have a really good idea and you go somewhere it doesn't work, you move somewhere else. People aren't mobile in education because nearly everybody who teaches or is an administrator, they're where they are because they're from there, or their spouse is from there, and their spouse doesn't want them to mess that up either. And so I think that there are restraints on us, and generally speaking, humans in general are not risk takers. They prefer security over adventure and safety over thrill. So that's humans in general. Teachers are a subset of that. And this is part of why change is hard in education, because teachers are typically risk averse. Those of us who go into administration are less risk averse than the other teachers, is why we end up in administration. And so I think that's a challenge for us, is because that fear, because it might not have worked. And more than that, the people, I'll tell you why it worked at Morgan County, is Ronnie Stapp and Bob Pryor and Sally Stevens and Jimmy Paxson and Minnie Peak.
Who were they?
They were my school board.
Oh.
And they empowered Pat Stokes. And when we first started when we had Talk Like a Pirate Day and I was dressed like a pirate a month into school, that could have been a problem, but it wasn't, because they believed, and they believed in part because Pat Stokes kept telling them it's going to be all right. But eventually, I think lots of those people actually had kids who dressed like pirates over the years, and because it's part of this community. It's this wonderful moment that you can build this community at a school, and being a part of something makes people perform better. And
This is good. This is so good. There's just so much, but as you say, it's simple but good. There's that phrase, simple but good. I think that's with French food. Simple, but this is simple but good education. And I think when we talked about this program and how Mark will do things for 3 or 4 days or a week or at the Institute, that there's just so much to cover. But what we wanted to achieve today, and I think, Sandy, I feel like we have, and hope you do too, Mark, is to kind of introduce our viewers to this concept of the simple but good and what it is. And with those resources and with events coming up like the Diploma Institute and other events, and Mark's contact information, which we'll share on the screen in a minute, that people can then take this idea and start to, I don't know about run with it. Would you say run with it or go with it?
Well, I think both, and I think, and again, I mean, you know, back to the Beatles, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Oh,
and
I love it.
there are so many great principals and great teachers who are doing things like this all the time. And the amazing part is that it will go places that you didn't expect it to. Can I tell you a quick story?
Please.
Oh, please. Yes.
So, best day that ever happened to me at school. It started, actually, I was at the tennis courts. It was in May, and 2 students walked up to me, and I knew they were junior boys, and I'm like, you're kind of like RoboCop when you're a high school principal. You're identifying everything, and they're walking over to me, and they have a special step about them, and I'm like, it's prom time. I bet one of them has a date, and she's overage, and they're going to try to talk me into letting her come to prom, and the answer is going to be no. And so, so they're walking over, and I'm approachable, so that happens all the time, and I think I know what they're going to say, and they go, Doc. I go, guys, how you doing? And they go, do you know Nick Walker? And now I'm like blown away. I'm like, what? Why are they talking to me about Nick Walker? So we start the conversation. The guys say, you know, Nick is one of the best kids we have at school. And I go, I know, he's a great kid. And they said, he holds the door open for all the kids to come in at lunch. And I said, he's excellent. They said, you know, Nick, every day he goes to the office and he tells all the ladies in the office that they look beautiful. And I go, I know Nick is a charmer. And I said, why are we talking about Nick? And they looked at each other and they said, we want to give Nick a plaque. And I said, a plaque? I said, all right. I said, awards night comes up soon. It's at night. Parents come. We'll invite Nick. We'll invite his parent. We won't tell them what it is. We'll let you give them the plaque. And they looked at each other. And when you work with kids, you know when you've given them the wrong answer. And they looked at each other and they said, we want to give Nick a plaque in front of all of the students and teachers at our school. And I looked back at them. And because we are a school of empowerment and vision, I said, okay. And but now here's the trade-off, is when you run a school like that or you run an organization like that, if people just come and give you their ideas and you have to do them for them, you haven't done anything. So my answer back to them was, what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to plan it? And so I told them they had to plan it, they had to be in charge, and they knew that's what the game was. I said, tomorrow by noon, I need to see what it is you want to put on this plaque. And then I'll let you know if you got your assembly. And so they brought it. They beat me to school the next morning. They're waiting on me outside. And I read what they wrote, and I looked at them. I said, you've got your assembly. And so you may think I'm crazy on this, but I had no idea what they were doing in the assembly between then and when I called the group together the next Wednesday. So I called all the students and teachers to come to the gym. And I got there to the gym, and there were all of our people. And there's Tyler and Jared, and they're in charge of the assembly, and they've brought everybody together. And they walk out, and it's not unusual. You know, no adult addresses everybody. They hold up their hands. All the kids get quiet. They know what to do. And so they say, we are here to recognize and honor one of our students today. And about that time, the football team comes out. Bill Malone, our football coach, it's May, but he's gone back and he's given everybody jerseys to put on. They form a tunnel, and the cheerleaders go up in the stands, and they get Nick, and they bring him down. And I have to say, at this point, if nothing else happened, Nick would have been happy because all the cheerleaders have gone to get him. So they bring him and they walk him through the tunnel, and they bring him to the end of the gym, and they put him in this chair. It's my preacher's chair from the Methodist Church. It's our most kingly looking chair. And so they get him there, and he sits there, and then kids come up and they give testimonials about Nick. The chorus comes out and they sing, "You've Got a Friend in Me." Then we have other people, we have other soloists, and this is a pretty big production. But one of the coolest things ever happens, my cafeteria ladies come out, and they're in full cafeteria regalia, and they walk out, and Miss Rhonda grabs the microphone, and she looks to everybody and she says, "Everybody knows you hold the door open every day for the kids, but what they don't know is that every day you come in the kitchen and you tell all of my ladies they look beautiful, and you know all my ladies by name, and you make our job worth coming to." And the cafeteria ladies went and sat down, and the Nick's teacher came up, Meredith Holloway, and she grabbed the microphone. Most powerful thing I ever saw in school all these years, and I've seen a lot of good things. And she looked up, she looked back and forth, and she said, "If Nick has done something specifically for you, if he has complimented you, done you a favor, stand up." And nearly everybody in the gym stood up. 1,000 students, 120 faculty members. And then Jared and Tyler, they gave him his plaque, and it read, "To Nick Walker, Mr. Morgan County, thank you for teaching the students and teachers at our school how we should treat each other."
Yeah.
And it had the date. And that's something that you get when you build a culture where students want to come to school. They will do things that are amazing. And Tyler and Jared, they weren't like student body president or anything. They were just two guys who saw another kid that they thought needed this recognition. And we were a school where we weren't, you got to get humble at some point. The kids will humble you, your performance will humble you, but if you'll humble yourself and you'll realize, it would have been easy for us to say, no, we have important things we have to cover in class that day. I can't imagine anything more important than that, because that was powerful. And that's probably my message, is take time and be patient and work with people and give them a chance to excel and succeed, and they'll do more than you would have ever imagined.
Yeah, would you ever have imagined that? That's a
No,
wonderful
that's a powerful
story.
story, Mark. Thank
And
you
I
for
know
sharing
it
that.
your heart, every time you tell it, you can see it in your face. I'm so glad we're not on radio anymore, because I used to say, "Oh, you should see their face, you should see their face." But now you can see his face and how genuine and how wonderful the work he's done. And I hate that we have to kind of wind down now,
We do,
Sandy.
Marty. And I can't help but say to our viewers, if you have a question as to, well, can such a simple and logical approach to interpersonal behavior and empowerment, can that yield academic success, improve graduation rates, help me with my accountability measures, the kind of data that Mark has to share about the schools that he's led, and the fact that he was recognized as the National Secondary Principal of the Year is not exactly shabby evidence of how this type of simple, logical approach can yield the kind of benefits we look for every day, Marty.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Mark, why don't you put up your slide so people can get in touch with
Sure,
you?
that'll be
Why don't
great.
we do that? And he'll be zipping through a bunch of these. Oh, there he is.
There it
So
is.
he wants to be contacted. We want you to look at the resources that are on that page, and I think there is some presentation of yours in addition to the School Climate Center, which has our document up there, and a whole bunch of other really good stuff. So continue this work, this conversation, and thank you for being with us, because this has been a joy.
Well, and thank you for having me. And I just want to thank all the teachers and students that I've worked with. It was because of their commitment that these things have happened.
It doesn't just happen in Madison, Georgia. It happens everywhere.
It happens
And
everywhere.
it can happen in your community too. And so I think this is exciting that maybe we've kicked something off here today. Whole movement. Oh, what a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to mention, by the way, Sandy, that we have the summer off.
Yes, we do.
And we're going to be, looking at, if anybody has some suggestions for us, we're always happy to have them. Send them at ndpc@clemson.edu.
We'll be planning our solutions broadcast this summer.
And we plan to open up again in September.
Exactly.
And we'll see, how the next year plays out. But this has been a great year. what a wonderful exclamation point to end the year with. And so here we go. And so now it's that moment where we get to see what the young people have to say. As I mentioned earlier, these are students from Bennett Middle College High School up in Greensboro, North Carolina, and they're going to tell us what they think about school, and they're going to give us the last word. So, as always, the youth get the last word.
Let's hear it, Marty.
The class size is smaller, and I feel like I could ask questions without people looking around and being rude, and I'm kind of shy, like, in front of a lot of people. If you have like something you need to go over, you can always go back and feel sure that they're going to help you and get your questions answered.
Here they treat us like young ladies, and that's what I really like. They don't call us kids, they call us either students or young ladies or young adults. They respect us and we respect them, and you know, you get respect to give it, give respect to get it. And I just feel free and independent. I feel more responsible here. I just have everything here.
School is a great place to be. Check it out.